homepage judgment is design related. So some British researchers did a study on some health websites. And when they did this study, they were trying to figure out when the users were on the site, what were they using as parts of judgment, whether to continue to look through the site or to leave. So only 6% of their judgment was based off of the actual content, the words. 94% had to do with navigation. Was the design aesthetic? Was it pleasing? So the first thing we want to kind of point out here is that the design and the feeling when people come on your website, not just what it says, is very, very important. And it's only 6% of what you say, but 94% of how you say it. The next metric we want to look at here is a research study done by Google. We want to know how quick do people make these judgments. And based off their studies, these decisions of whether to, the gut feeling decision of whether to stay or whether to leave the site happened in less than half a second. So a lot of people will talk about this 7-second rule, this 5-second rule. According to this research study from Google, it's half a second before that instinct happens. And so the factors that went into that gut feeling were two things. Low complexity, so was the site easy to understand? Did they understand what it was right when they got to it? And high relevancy. So did they see what they were expecting to see? You know, if you go to a law firm's website, you're expecting to see some type of call to action that you can contact them and tell them what your claim is. If you're a travel booking site, you want to be able to look at all your options of what you can book. So each website and each homepage kind of criteria that we're going to go over is very industry specific. There is no cookie cutter, one size fits all. So depending on what you do, if it's real estate, you want to get into marketing, if it's lucid dreaming, which is really cool, then the way you structure your website and the messaging is going to be unique to your business. And another thing we're going to emphasize through this is that your website needs to give off the same feeling that you're hoping that your brand will be giving off. So that experience that your brand gives needs to be the same as the experience that your website gives. The third thing, as far as the importance of first impressions, is that they linger. So I'm going to cite a study from livescience.com. And what they did was they wanted to figure out, when it comes to first impressions, how hard did they stick compared to conflicting information down the road. So what they did was they showed a picture of an individual with a negative quality. They showed this to a group of people, strawberry thief, carrying strawberries. That's your first impression, so that's what you see. So down the road, when they continued to show images to the sample size of people, they would show the same image with conflicting information. So even when they showed this same image later down the road, and they told them specifically the last piece of information you saw about this picture was wrong, it was incorrect, that first impression still stuck. Their judgment of this image or this individual was still lower compared to the people who saw this quality on the image first. So that shows how subconscious our judgments are when it comes to first impressions. So if they see your website, right, and it's got very similar, the elements are essentially non-aesthetic, non-pleasing, clunky, outdated, or just ugly. That first impression is going to stick. So if you just change a couple of elements of your website, but it's basically the same, then they're going to have that same first impression. The next thing these researchers wanted to do was, okay, can we change that first impression? After we've shown this first negative quality, can we make them go away from that first impression, that first initial feeling about that image? So they started to change the background. They wanted to change the environment of which people were being presented this image, or in our case, our homepage, our brand. And they discovered when they changed the environment and decontextualized what they were seeing, that magnitude of that first impression actually decreased. Now, changing the color of your website isn't going to do enough as far as changing that first impression. They said the more you change that background or that environment, the more you change it, and not just changing elements, but a total redesign, you can say, that is the best way, if you already have a bad first impression, to fix it. So for example, if I gave a first impression right now that was very poor based on how I was looking, just off my looks, I would need to shave my head, shave my beard, maybe get a really good tan, wear different clothes. I would need to redesign my whole self. And the same thing goes for our websites. So that's showing kind of the magnitude or the power of the first impression, and then what it takes to try to change it if you're leaving the bad one first. And so the next thing we're going to talk about is the organization of the homepage. Now, I mentioned before, it's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. So we're going to do our best here to just go over the general elements that you want to have in these different regions of your website to send the right message to your user and leave that good first impression. And again, this quote will come up a lot when talking about your homepage, is that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you got to make that initial landing, that hero region, which is what's right here. It needs to be very impactful. It needs to be memorable, and it needs to be what they're expecting and more. It needs to be on point. So some different elements that we want to include in this hero region would be an emotional connection. So what does their happy ending look like? When they land on the page, they want to see what they can accomplish. From a content perspective, so what you're saying, it needs to also be something that is establishing your value that you're going to provide to them. And it also needs to be user-centric. So one thing we want to avoid when we're looking at this hero region is talking about yourself, talking about your company. So for example, when you guys were walking in today, right? And I introduced myself, and if I said, hey, I'm Tim, I'm really great. It's not a good first impression. If you guys walked in and I said, hey, I'm Tim, I really want to help you today. What can I do to help you? That's totally different. Because we're talking about you, the user, and that's essentially what they're trying to do as well, or any website, is appease to what the user's needs are. So very important in the hero region to communicate your value, connect with the user, and even try, if you can, to have some type of feeling in it. Because you don't want to be just words. You need to have something that will pique their interest, above just what you're saying, but what am I seeing that I can connect with and feel excited about? You also want to have a CTA, or a call to action, that's bringing you to that primary action that logically would be the next step for them to take. You don't want them to have to scroll and look for it. If they already know who you are and what your website does, make it easy for them to get exactly where the logical next step would be. The next region, again, it varies, but in a conventional standpoint, this is where we can start talking a little bit more about your offer, what you do, what your service is, or what your product is. Now, on the top here, we have benefits list, and it's very important that we define the difference between benefits and features. So features would be, this is a X-inch TV with, super environmentally friendly things, and it lasts a really long time. That's a feature. A benefit, a value would be see images so vividly that you can reach into the screen and feel like you're there. So that's the difference. The benefit is what you're getting out of it. The features will lead to that, but you need to start at the end. What are they going to get out of it? Not as much, what's it going to take to get there? That'll be deeper when they start to do some more research and they want some proof. So very important to know the difference between benefits and features. Also, you want to establish some type of social proof or some authenticity. So this is where badges, testimonials, these really fit in this area. This goes back to, like I mentioned before, you don't want to say, hey, we're really great because we say so. You want someone else telling them how great you are. So a good testimonial is one that looks very authentic and legit as well. It has a picture of the person or their name, their company, a link, something that verifies you're for real and you're really good at what you do. And then as we get down closer to the bottom, this is where you can talk about yourself a little bit more. So we'll look at some real life examples here in a minute, but this is where, for instance, you can talk about your company. What your company's values are, why they help you stand out from your competition. This is also a great area for offers. So if you have some sales going on, if you have a newsletter that you want people to sign up for, coupons, and even if you want to show some of that content, if you have a blog, this is a great spot for people to find new blogs that were posted. Now, of course, like I mentioned, this is conventional. If you have a site in which your content or your articles are the most prominent, important things people are looking for, that would actually be living in the hero image. And we're going to look at an example of that as well a little bit later. But this is essentially kind of the traditional layout of a home page and a website. And if you guys have any questions throughout this whole thing, just throw your hand up, and we'll do our best to answer it.
What is a fold?
Sorry? Okay, so good question. So above the fold means what they see on their screen right away. So above the fold is that hero region. Anything below the fold is when they start scrolling, when they start to take and get action and engage in the rest of the site. So what you have above the fold, which is a very common term that a lot of designers use, it's very important. It's the most important, from a visual standpoint, part of your site to connect with the user.
Something to keep in mind is responsive design. The fold can be different depending on what the users experience the site on. It can be as large as a television to as small as a phone. So during the design phase, one thing we always keep in mind is making sure we have those actionable, emotional items you need above the fold on any type of device.
Sure. Yeah. Don't forget about mobile. And speaking of which, we're going to run through some do's and don'ts. And Brett's going to help us out with that as well. But what we want is for you guys to tell us which one you think is the do.
Yeah. So, like Tim said, not all site is cookie cutter. It's going to be unique to what the goal of that client or that site is. But there are some certain standards that are going to be common throughout any type of page design. So, do's and don'ts. Do we want to talk about the user or do we want to talk about ourselves?
User. Do we say do or don't?
You say the do. You say the good.
Say what you think.
Talk about yourself.
Talk about yourself. You are wrong. You always want to make sure that you're engaging the user and talking about them. You don't want to talk about yourself. It's not all about you. It's about the person coming trying to find what they want. All right, do's and don'ts. Do we want to show an ambiguous image or do we want to show an irrelevant image that the user will recognize?
Relevant image.
Ding, ding, ding.
You guys know this. Come on, everybody get involved.
Yeah.
Try to make it easy.
Most of these are going to be like, it's pretty straightforward, but you want to be surprised, in the design process, might be something that you're overlooking. Like, there's so many things to keep in mind, but obviously we want to make sure the users are seeing stuff that's relevant to what they're searching for. That you don't want them Googling for something that's showing up to your site that's nothing at all what they're expecting. Do we want to showcase features or showcase value and benefits?
Features.
Value and benefits. As Tim was explaining earlier when he was kind of giving the example of the television. The feature is like, stats and specifics, about the device, but the benefits and values is what that user is going to get from the television.
Now, it doesn't mean you don't want to talk about your features at all. Because there are industries, say, that are a lot more technical, where their value or benefit might be part of the feature, Or when you get deeper into the site, for example, with Amazon, when you see it, you kind of have to click a couple times before you see all those stats and numbers about the specific product. So features are very important. They need to be explained. On the home page, your user is still discovering. They're still learning a little bit at a high level.
Create high-level points, skim-friendly copy, and linked into your pages for more content-heavy engagement. That's a mouthful. Squeeze everything you want to say about yourself into the homepage. First one.
Isn't it funny? It's ironic.
Yeah. One common mistake is thinking you need to get everything out right away for the user. By doing that, you're going to clutter your page, you're going to make it crowded, and you're going to make it hard for what the user probably looking for. You're not there to find everything. They're there to find one or two specific items. So you want to make sure you're creating high-level content so it's easy for them to find, and then navigate to the pages that might have more of the content that you think they'll need.
Trust that they will click. Because if you present it correctly, and that's what they're looking for, they will click.
Pat yourself on the back or showcase social proof.
Social proof.
That word's going to be popping up here quite a bit. Right? As Tim was saying earlier, about yourself, it can come off as bragging, whereas if you have other people, you know, saying how great you are, you know, it's going to be engaging for the user, like, oh, obviously, these people like this product, I'm probably gonna like it too, especially if it happens to be like friends or anybody on social media that are opening up.
Yep. And another part about social proof, which is very important, is using third-party accolades. So like Better Business Bureau is an example of something you want to showcase. It is really, really easy to start patting yourself on the back using hyperboles and not even realizing you're doing it. It's like in your eyes, you're really just trying to explain to people, hey, I'm really good at this, you know? But at the same time, it's easy to fall into that, but you need to let other people be advocates for you and champion for you.
Make sure mobile has an equally impressive first experience, or only focus on the desktop.
These are easy, guys. You got it.
More people are experiencing sites nowadays on a mobile experience, so you want to make sure you're obviously catering to all types of devices, not just the desktop, even though they might look pretty.
Yeah.
Did you have an idea?
No, especially on a big TV, desktop looks a lot better.
Use bold, inspirational photography. Use common stock imagery. Inspiration. Kind of goes back to the second bullet point, you know, where we were talking about like making sure it's relevant imagery. People can tell what a stock photo looks like nowadays, you know. So I mean, not everybody's going to have the budget to like go and get their own stuff taken, but like there's some really good photos out there that you can find that are going to be way better than just the common like nurse standing with a clipboard right there.
It's like we're going to show it.
Yeah. Right. Do we want to wait a couple years to update the site, or do we want to set up experiments and polls and test and continue to improve upon the site? All right. So it's common. It's not uncommon for somebody to like come to us and want a site and then shake our hand when it launches and say thanks a bunch and just kind of like walk out after that. You know, they're going to get some immediate value from the site right away, but unless they're like continuously looking at data to kind of figure out how users are experiencing their site and continually improving upon it, then he's never going to get the full investment he made on that redesign in the first place.
Spot on.
Okay. So now we're going to kind of walk through a few real life examples. I think we've got 3 of them, and they're all sites that we've done here. The first one is Bethel Farms.
So thinking about what we were talking about earlier about that very first hero region. We want it to be emotional, but you also have to understand your user in order to know what to put there. So what Bethel Farms does, and specifically for the website, they wanted to target the end consumer. What they do is they sell natural turf grass. So what is a happy ending for a family who owns a house and they want to get some natural turf grass? It is definitely this. Them and their kids running through the grass barefoot, having an awesome time. And you look like Ryan Gosling too. So this is kind of, you know, this is a great example of that immediate connection, understanding what it is, what you do, and what you offer, and you're talking about them. Your home, bolded, standing out, because that's what they're there to do. They're there for you. So that's the reason we wanted to show this one a lot, is for this hero region, because it really speaks to the values of a good first impression. So we can keep scrolling down, and the other good thing about this one, and it's very simple. It's not too complicated trying to throw all these different stats. A very common thing for e-commerce sites in the second or third region is you want to start showing your products. You want the user to immediately know, A, you are an e-commerce site, so another indicator would be the cart up in the top right, but you also want to show what you offer. You know, these are our products. This is more for a heuristic, you know, helping the user understand what you do. And then as you continue down, you know, like I said, it's very simple, and at this point, this is where they start talking a little bit about themselves, what separates them from the competition. So they have a video, and as you continue to scroll, they start to show some affiliations, some social proof, some authority. So you want me to tab over to it? Yeah. Hello. Hello, welcome. Hi there.
My wife.
I think so.
Welcome.
A misstep on this one could have easily been, let's hurry up and show the types of grass they offer. Let's hurry up and talk about ourselves because we're trying to sell something. instead of taking an approach where we're making sure everything's being designed from the user. The user is a family member, and the family member would want to see emotion and kind of the return on that grass. So, interesting.
The next site is the Florida Hospital Nicholson Center. This one was a very recent one. We just launched this in December. Again, you can see that hero region is being used for the full immersion, emotional feel that we're trying to get. This is a little more, not straight business to per individual, targeted towards the medical training people.
So that Nicholson Center is it's unique to other Florida hospital entities because its purpose is to host training events. So understanding who that specific user we're trying to attract and connect with right away, we wanted to make sure we're communicating exactly what it was when they land on the site. So this also goes to the very first bullet point we looked at, where your first impression on a website is 94% the design, the look and feel. And so we really wanted to make this one, very unforgettable when it comes to that first experience, that first look and feel. So we have the subtle animations, which we're actually going to talk about in a little bit. We have that very first logical next step, experience the facility. And then as you scroll down, it's very similar to a lot of, what we were talking about before, which is, okay, now I understand the value you can provide me, so what do you do? And this kind of showcases all the different services, and it's very much catered towards the needs of the user, just like what Nicholson Center does on campus, where they actually, host these events. And like we mentioned before, the brand and the website need to give the same experience. That same feeling that the experience is when they use your product or service, we want that same feeling to happen on the website. So as you continue to scroll, you see hospitality was a big value proposition for them. They're not just a place that hosts meetings, they're a place that hosts experiences. So, we definitely wanted to, and this is the lady with the clipboard, but this is an actual real person.
That is a notebook.
Notebook, true.
Laptop.
A little upgraded.
There's a difference.
But again, very immersive. You feel like you're there. And then as you continue to scroll, we have some of that social proof, the testimonials, kind of the right hook, you could say, of a homepage once you start to scroll down a little bit. And then additional content that would be valuable to, we wanted to cater to all of the users. So the people attending the events, obviously, they want an easy place to find out where the events or when the events are happening. So we're really proud of this one, and we really like it because it does touch on a lot of the best practices for homepage design.
Let's go to the next one. Okay. So this next one is Designzilla's world premiere. Right? Nobody has seen this outside of this office, so you guys are getting a sneak peek. Right. Swap on over to, if you could tab out. So this client, so this is Lockbusters. They're an upcoming escape room attraction here in Orlando. They're going to open up an iDrive soon. His big point coming to us was like, these are going to be really immersive rooms. They're not just simple, like, you go in, I got to look for keys that are going to open up a door. I'm going to be like engaging. I'm going to be like interacting. There's not going to be anybody in the room with you. You're going to be told in there for an hour on your own to try to get out. So we wanted to make sure that we really gave off that sense and vibe, and immersion just on the site alone. So we wanted the right tone, the right imagery, the right color. The lobby of his place is going to be steampunkish, so we went with the look and feel of that. Basically, right away, we want a sense of mystery and suspense and curiosity. And we have the big bold text on the left with the main call to action, because all we're going to do on the site is basically book a room.
So based off of what Brett just described of the goal, what the client wanted, did you guys immediately understand what this was, and did you get that same feeling once you looked at this very first hero region?
Yeah.
Very easy to understand what it is, and then as far as what he wanted to portray as far as on site in the escape room, he wanted on the site as well. And so we did our best here, and we think we really helped that immersive feeling. It's the big imagery, the smoke, all the gears, really just starts to give you that feeling. You get when you think about this type of thing.
This is going to be a bit truly immersive site, we're gonna like try to go all out, make sure there's like nice smoke animations, gears move whenever you go anywhere, you know, and immediately the first thing that you're gonna want is to show them like what am I gonna get? You know, like so all right, I know your escape room, so like what kind of rooms do you have? Right off the bat, slider showcasing all the rooms. Oh, it's a serial killer theme, well, there's something with aliens, that looks like a war area, pirate trader over there. You know, I know it's going to host, I can have that many people in the room with me. Oh, he's saying it's 6 out of 10, so that's a bit of a challenge. All right, I made a book the room. All right. And as we go down, here we're talking about features and values. You know, kind of mixed together, you know, we're kind of combining both. But at this point, we've already grabbed the attention of the user. They're hopefully fully engaged and ready to book. All right, and at the end, again, keyword social proof.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's like, all right, well, where are they at? You know, like, I gotta know. Yeah. Their location isn't open yet. We're gonna be opening up in spring sometime, and can't wait for the site to go live. You know, development, I've been like working with the developer on it, and the stuff he's got going with it so far looks really sick so far.
Real quick before you go back. One thing that you also got to note is that when you start thinking about how far people scroll down, a lot of times you look at the fold because traditionally people aren't going to scroll that far. They're going to try to make a decision very quick. But when you use design to tell a story and you're standing out, curiosity will naturally bring people further down that rabbit hole. So as we have a lot of immersive areas below the fold, with design you can continue that story without having to rely on click, 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 and all this. You're basically cramming all this stuff at the top of your site. So just another added value when you're talking about the importance of design, that it really lets you take full advantage of that real estate of the entire page.
So those are some examples that we've done. Right now, we will transition over into some of the upcoming some trends that have like come in the last couple of years that are quite popular right now.
All right, so this first one is an emphasis on the content. So this is Vice News, of course, that's why you got the, that type of headline in there. But essentially, what they're doing is they're giving exactly what users come to their site for, their featured article. Content is a very strong platform right now for getting brand awareness. So even if your brand, for example, doesn't even, if their purpose isn't necessarily publishing or content or magazine, if their blog is super popular and that's what most users come to them for, that might be something that they want to feature on the hero image. So again, it's catering to what the user's needs are. They might have started as having the hero image talking about themselves, what they offer, but they evolved based off of user needs to figure out, okay, what's the best thing to put up here in this hero region that will keep them engaged and give them what they want. So putting your content in the hero region, even if you're not a publisher, can be a very smart move. And it is becoming more prevalent throughout the industry.
All right, quick access to the main action of the site. Here we're looking at Airbnb. Obviously, they know people are there for like one main reason, is that to make a reservation. So they have it right off on the top of the site. You don't want them to have to look for it, be confused how to even like do what you want them to do. So they have it right there on the top.
And then we have micro interactions. Now these are a little more fun, and it's a little more development that goes into the design. But the goal for micro interactions is to keep the user engaged, just like what Johnny was talking about. We want to keep them curious, we want to create some mystery, but we want to create some fun as well. So the coolclub.co does a really good job doing this. On hover, you have some little bounces. On click, you have some extra little micro interactions that keep you engaged. Now this is becoming very popular because the regular type of interactions that were happening before were just too heavy. They would slow the site down. They would just kind of skip when the user's trying to use it. With micro interactions, it's a little more realistic for any type of browser or device, regardless of what speed they're on.
And all those on micro interactions, like traditionally we're coming out of the world of like Flash, where like everything had to move. So I think using micro interactions, it's like this tasteful, animation that gives you some flair without having to go over the top. So it's just like just enough that keeps everything alive and exciting without overwhelming everybody.
Yeah, it's like your website's facial expressions, pretty much. You're not going to be like, yeah, but you're going to give a little eyebrow raises here. And then the next trend is something that's actually not picked up as much as we thought it would, but it's the mobile navigation optimization, specifically catering to what you're using in your hand. So one of those optimizations is really happening in a big time with applications, so different apps on your phones, such as Evernote in this case, where the main action or the most common action that a user will be taking is really accessible right there for your thumb, whether you're lefty or righty, somewhere on the bottom. A really good app that did this that a lot of us probably use was Pokemon Go. That every action that you needed to take started on that bottom navigation, that little button in the middle. So the same thing is starting to happen with websites. Since it's heuristically different, which means people aren't used to getting to the navigation from the bottom, it's not as popular. But as people start to use apps more, they'll recognize, when they get to a website that has the same type of layout, that this is where they need to go, and it's easier for them to access it. So this is something that it's trending, and it's very early as far as websites go for mobile navigation.
To add to that, actually, most people, they're finding, don't prefer to download apps because it takes up space on their phone, and they might not trust downloading something that they're not 100% for. So this is, like you said, a very early trend. When you use an app, they're usually built from the ground up for that experience, and that's why techniques like this really work. And by bringing it over to the website of things, we can then cater those people the app-like experience, but on the website.
Very good. Actually, didn't you say, you told me Twitter. So Twitter does a really good job doing that. When you go to, say, your browser on your phone, you go to twitter.com, it still gives you that similar experience as far as the easy access with your thumb or your left thumb or whatever it may be. It doesn't just do it for its app. The next item that's trending with web design is minimalistic navigation, which pretty much means not crowding the navigation. So you can see this individual here. I can't pronounce his name, Nakashi. I'm going to say Nakashi. Nakashi design, on the top right, that's where his navigation lives, and it's only 3 items. So this kind of caters to the philosophy of decision paralysis. If you have a navigation that has 8, 9, 10 items, then the user doesn't really have a clear idea of what to do next, even if they know what they're looking for. When we simplify that, it gives them a much easier journey, you can say, more comprehensible journey as well. They're not confused as far as looking through each one individually until they find what they want. It's very easy to understand what they're going to get with each one of these. Now, there are some sites, especially e-commerce sites, where it's really hard to minimalize the navigation, but there is not a theory as much as a behavioral characteristic that we have, where if we want to make a decision, give us the easiest or the least amount of decisions first. So if you're, for example, trying to choose a car to rent, the first question, traditionally would be everything on the same page as far as the characteristics you want in your car. If you minimalize that and turn it into steps, make that first decision between 3 things. Do you want to rent a truck? Do you want to rent a car? Or do you want to rent a motorcycle? And then from there, that's when you get more in depth. But that's kind of the idea behind the minimal navigation, is that we want to give people an easy experience, a good user experience when using the site, so they're not inundated with so many decisions at once, and then they decide to just give up.
I'll say something else around that. And I saw this recently. We had a prospective client that we met with, but basically they had minimal navigation. So we're like, great. But you clicked on one, say you click travel, and then that navigation now changes, right? So now all of a sudden you see Jamaica, Caribbean, and something else. But that navigation is kind of the central place for that user to be kind of the escape hatch. How do I get to where I need to go? Kind of like the Dorothy effect of if there's no place like home, you've got to be able to find your way back home. And so if you change your navigation, that's a no-no. right? So always make sure that there's a central place for you to navigate no matter where you are. And so minimalistic navigation is tricky about that, so you have to really have to build a strategy in your architecture so that you can support that.
And the next trend, this is something that I think we'll both have different opinions on. I think it's really cool, but it's unconventional navigation. So we're looking at this site here, and you're kind of looking at a video, and when that thing pops up, that's us clicking on the navigation. And it's unconventional in the sense of it's not a vertical nav as far as what your options are. It's horizontal. Now, in this case, it kind of does fit. It's easy enough for the user to understand. They can choose the different horizontal options, but I think you had a pretty good argument as well.
Basically what it comes down is to don't design something just for design's sake. There's a reason a logo is typically on the left and a nav is on the right or the center. There are common standards and practices that have been developed over time, so users are used to seeing things in certain places. Now, that doesn't mean you're not free to experiment, but you just want to make sure you're not going to confuse your user.
Yeah. Just like in the very beginning we talked about, in less than half a second, they're deciding whether to leave or stay based off complexity. So if you do have something that's too complicated, you're losing them in half a second. So very important to keep those heuristics going.
Just because it's trending doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah, it's all about the user.
So this kind of goes with what Johnny was saying earlier about storytelling with the site. As you can see before the GIF even animates, the page just kind of like flows naturally. There's no like hard division or divider. It's kind of like you're experiencing a story as you scroll. You're enticing the user to experience something. And not only are you like making the flow look natural, in this example here, they are incorporating interesting page transitions. So it's engaging, it's intriguing, it's going to cause the user to want to continue to see more.
Kind of looks like you're falling into a lucid dream, right?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's.
And this is also, it's also really cool because you don't have that awkward moment when you're scrolling through and you have half of the top fold and half of the bottom fold, and it's like, it's just, as an experience, you can easily scroll through it, but this kind of design and development prevents that from ever even happening. So they're comprehensively having an experience on every scroll, every click. And so when it comes to knowing what your assumptions are when it comes to your website and your homepage and how it's performing, there's a good amount of resources out there to make those judgments. Now, a lot of these resources are kind of like heat map tools where you can see where people are clicking, you can see where they're scrolling, and they also have recording capabilities, so you can actually watch users interact with your site, specifically your homepage in this case, and see what they're doing, where they're falling off, where they're getting confused. You can also use polls with a lot of these different resources too. These are all applications. If you just Google them, you'll find it. And we use Hotjar. It's really cool. I enjoy watching people on websites not knowing they're being watched. But it's really helpful also because you can set up polls. So if someone gets to a certain point or takes a certain action, you can have a little one-question survey pop up. Hey, and you see this a lot with exit intent as well. When you're trying to leave a page, a little thing pops up. Now that might be intrusive a lot of times, but the information that you can get from it is highly valuable to understanding what the user needs, what they want, where the friction is. So this is also a great way to talk about kind of that do's and don'ts of making sure you're testing and optimizing and not just letting it sit there. Once you launch a site, it's like a living thing. You need to continue to take care of it. And in this case, it's your users that are kind of the food of it, or the fuel for your website, and you need to see how that fuel is interacting with your website. And also, Google Analytics is really good for measuring behavior as far as how long are people staying on the home page, what natural page are they going to next. The behavior you're seeing from different pages, especially your home page, it's really got a lot of value once you start to understand how to read that data. So Google Analytics, it's free. And every website, if you have a website, you need to have it because it'll help you judge a lot of different things about your site.
I was going to say, it's kind of like too, if you think about this is kind of your digital storefront. In the physical store, somebody approached a manager and said, hey, I really don't like how your shelves are organized, or the aisles are really narrow. Somebody continued to get feedback from prospects on how annoyed they were or friction they felt in the buying experience, a change would be made. So I feel like this happens a lot on websites, but because it's digital and it's invisible and we actually have to seek out to get that information, it can sometimes go unnoticed and not addressed, and it just ends up turning into, I'm not sure why nobody's coming to my website, I'm not sure why this is happening. And so I think taking the time to listen to our customers or peek into what's actually happening, those small tweaks and changes can happen where people aren't really able to vocalize it because they're shopping online and visiting.
That's a good point. Yeah, you need to give them an opportunity in the moment when it's happening to vocalize or give that feedback, so you know what they're feeling in that moment and how you can make that experience better from that touch point. And so the next part we want to do is we want to see your website. So if any of you guys have a website that you'd like us to kind of give a little critique to and see what type of good things and things that could use improvement for, just let us know and we'll type it in here.
I think I put it on the thing for this event.
Okay.
But if you want to do it, it's TZT, Tom Zebra Tom, LNT.com.
All right, so we also want this to be like, everyone, based off of what we learned today, if you see any, opportunities here or anything that he's doing right as well, definitely chime in and, let us know what you think. So, first impression here, Brett.
Immediately, it makes me think I should be looking at it on a phone because it's quite narrow, and the first thing I'm seeing is a phone number. It's a little bit disjointed. It doesn't have like a natural flow and exactly where I want to look. And plus, the text, the yellow text on the background image is a little hard to read. So you kind of want to make sure there's readability with your fonts and not only the font you're using, but the color you're using. And then therapeutic massage, your pathway to serenity, trigger zone therapy. I'm not sure what you want me to do right now. Do you want me to book a massage? Do you want me to get more information? I see how to get a free massage is on the bottom and it's bolded, but it's not standing out. So if that's what you want me to do, it should be more prominent somewhere on the page.
I like that you said your pathway to serenity with the image. I think you tied that in well.
I took that.
You took that photo? Yeah, no, I think that message is good. Like you were saying, it's not, you're not just providing a massage, you're providing a specific pathway to helping somebody. And I think, so I thought that was well received. I think having some sort of identity, logo, brand, name, something that I can just turn up to the left top corner, just so I know who you are, I think would be really helpful.
I've never seen it on a PC before.
Oh, really? Have you always looked at it on your phone? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you're not only a PC, you got a big old TV too. So also definitely keep that in mind. When you increase the size of things, it definitely, might change the perspective. I think from a best practice standpoint, with the copy, you're doing the right thing. You're explaining to people what you do and what that value is. The value you provide is a pathway to serenity. What you do is therapeutic massage. So it's very clear to understand what you do right away. Very good point about the branding. So the trigger zone therapy. If we had a logo or something that's very unique to you and only to you, that would help the user kind of identify who you are a little bit more than just the copy there. I think it is, if you are optimizing this for people using their phone, it's very smart having the phone number there up top. If that's the action that you wanted them to take, like Brett made a good point, whatever that logical next step is or that most important action they can take is, definitely want that within the hero region here so they can easily take that next step.
Can you scroll?
Let's go. Yeah.
So
what, well, let's hear what others have to say.
yeah, I'm wondering.
Based on what we've learned and like what we talked about, what do you guys think? Adam, what do you think?
Like when I saw like the front picture, but like on the computer, it kind of looks like it's an old website because it doesn't have like usually doesn't use that font. Like newer websites, like they try to like use the whole page and like optimize the page and not like leave like a lot of the page blank and just use a rectangular picture.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is the only one I've ever seen that uses the whole page.
And it's like you usually need a logo to like so people know that you're on that website and it's your brand.
Okay.
So as far as best practice goes, in this second region, we definitely want to showcase what you offer. And I think, I haven't read through the whole thing, but I think I see you are following best practices as far as you have the testimonial there. I think what you're talking about is correct. It's just the way it's being presented, right? So you're talking about what you offer, professional mobile massage therapy. So you can have your different offers, maybe presented in a more visual way separately, so people can easily consume. Remember, it's skim friendly on the homepage. Want people to be able to just kind of skim lightly through each region of the page to understand what you offer and how you stand out from everyone else. So you do have the right messaging coming out. But like we mentioned before with those studies, the words wasn't what was driving the user to continue to click around and continue to engage. It's the way that message is presented that really help people stay engaged. So you have the right messaging, it's just not presented in the correct way. So here we would definitely want, what you offer and, why the benefits of what you offer with that as well. I think for you as well, for this specifically, since it is a very personal, like one-on-one type thing, I would even say the testimonials would be what you would put very next. After people understand what you do in the hero region, the next thing that would be really good as far as convincing them that you're legit and you're really good would be testimonials from actual people. You mentioned you've also worked with some high-end type of NFL players, etc. You wouldn't need to name them, but to mention that as well, that establishes a lot of authority.
Yeah, it's like the next scroll.
Okay.
Oops, it's not, where is it?
It was on that
It
last
is on
page,
the-
yeah, right underneath the picture.
I trained her right, yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like it's very the content-heavy stuff has a place in the website. So we're never going to tell you, you want every page to be more visual than reading. The homepage definitely needs to be very visual to get them to take that next step to learn more about it. So if you could put the NFL logo somewhere on there.
Forget about it.
Yeah, right, come on, man. But I think just a piece of advice I'd say is just breaking up the content. Because like everything kind of blends together like it's one story. But you're really saying three different things. You're saying, hey, welcome, here's what I do, here's my value prop, here's a testimonial. Even if those had background images, and Jeff, I remember even on your site, you did a really good job at breaking up your sections.
Yeah.
Different background, so you're moving into a whole new section with how it's presented. And I think even just by doing that, you can, your eyes can just readjust and then sit and absorb the next piece of information.
The only reason I was restricted on this, this is what I could fit on the first page. If I made any spacing, even just a double space from here, it moves it automatically to the second page. So
Interesting.
everything that's on here was condensed to be on this page.
Okay.
Interesting.
I think the bottom does come across as very heavy in advertising. Like, don't forget to purchase a gift certificate. I don't know if I'm ready to purchase yet, but I am very curious about the results that you provide. Even when you kind of opened up today and you talked about you're more than just massage therapy. You're understanding people's pain and problems or chronic issues, and you're kind of helping that pathway to healing and serenity. Like, you actually provide a result for them. So there might be some value in digging a little deeper and kind of highlighting, that's what makes you different in what your service
I
is.
can't do that because that's what massage therapy is. The fact that other people don't do that is negligence. For me, I understand exactly what you're saying. For me to say that, I have to remember I'm a licensed medical professional, I'm subject to all kinds of laws and regulations. I'm members of society and stuff. If I were to say that I'm better because I fix you in any way, shape, or form, my neck would be in a sling.
That's interesting. Wow.
A legal sling and an ethical sling.
So you have. It sounds like you have a lot of limitations as far as not only what you can say,
This is
but
how ridiculous the limitations are. Just to make a stupid little point. I can hand you a bottle of water, and when I do, I cannot tell you to drink it.
that's very.
That's stepping over the line of the medical professional that I am. And if someone got pissed at me for whatever reason, and he told me to drink water and I got sick, I could lose my license just for something stupid like that.
That's crazy.
So the ethical and legal issues, this is not a mistake
Mhm.
or an oversight on my part. I'm walking fine lines all the time.
Yeah.
Logos and stuff. No,
Yeah.
I would just, maybe there's some rethought on just kind of the bottom section, so it's not
I can get rid of that. That bothers
so
me.
quick, but I think letting people know, because again, I don't know, what if I'm not looking for a gift certificate, or if you scroll down, Brett, it was like book a free massage, I don't know where it was. It was something like book a free, well, maybe I'm not looking to book free, I'm looking to book a paid.
One of the reasons that was put up there because it was part of my marketing campaign.
Okay. Yeah, again, just the thought from having
Yeah,
never
sure.
seen it.
No, absolutely.
Just a final little footnote, the spelling error on lose your stress. That would be something that we could obviously fix pretty easily.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, like I said, I think like you said, you're probably designed well for mobile. You get a lot of referrals. Most people are probably going to be doing it on that phone.
Do you think people are wanting to call you over scheduling an appointment?
As you were saying, referrals. This is where I send people to. Okay. Last time around here with the search engine optimization, it's not even that people are rejecting this; they're not seeing it. It's not being, for whatever reason, not maximizing the exposure.
Yeah.
But the numbers are pathetic as far as people who are even seeing it. So it's not like they're going to the page and disappearing.
Right.
Like, oh, I don't like this presentation, or the gift certificate thing turned me off, which I can understand, I can get rid of that. But it's not even, those aren't even issues, because they're not getting the traffic.
Yeah, true.
However, when I talk to somebody or referrals or anything, it's on my business card, they can go to the site, and I tell them, go to the menu, and when you go to the menu, it's got all of the, there's a ton of information, which they're looking for, because I told them to go and look for it, and then they can buy certain things, and they can do certain things. But my biggest problem is getting people just to look at it in the first place.
Yeah.
If I was getting 1,000 people a week looking at this thing and then no business, I would be like, oh, this is, I'm tossing it out.
Sure.
But I'm not getting it.
All right.
All right.
So anyone else got a website we can look at?
I don't have mine up.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's not finished, but it's in a working, I should have it put on a dev server, and I don't. Just Jeffrey, JEFFREY, Davidson, DAVIDSON, .net. Because I even have placeholder text, or placeholder images.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So from a organizational standpoint, you have the large imagery, which is good. You know, the very first thing you want to show is, something that's it's very impactful. And that's what big imagery does. It's definitely more popular now. You're explaining what you are right away and the value you provide. Probably as far as the very first experience goes, depending upon what picture you have. Usually you want to limit the amount you're saying in that region, because you don't want to take away from the emotion or feeling that they're getting from the very first picture and message. So that information, as far as the paragraph, most users will read, "Hi, I'm Jeffrey, backend developer, hire me," and then continue to scroll. Because they'll essentially, homepage visitors are skimmers. Most of them, not everybody. It's not black and white, but most of the people are just trying to skim. So giving a very skim-friendly treatment is very valuable for the homepage.
I would say, if somebody's coming to your site for the very first time, the call to action is probably not going to be something they're going to want to click on right away. Hire me is very, very direct, and they kind of want to find out a little bit more about you first before they're going to be committed
See
to
that
that.
work, something like that.
Yeah.
Yep, that's- Also, I think the contrast, like, even if you had a little bit of a dark overlay over that background, just so you can read that text a little bit easier without kind of having to strain your eyes, I think that would really help that pop. And much like we just mentioned, I think some sort of identity up at the top left. People kind of naturally go there, even if it's just your name. Or just like some way just to represent you. As you're kind of exploring, I think it would be very beneficial. And I agree with Brett. I think hire me is that's the end action. But most people are going to need to go on a date before they get married. So they'll probably want to see your work. I think is we're doing this very similar stuff, right? So like we want to get them to the portfolio, get them exposed to that quality, and then we can start asking them out.
You were mentioning about putting my name in the top left. I've been told to do that, but then I've also said, okay, well, I've also been told, well, then don't introduce yourself again, like where I have I am Jeff.
Yeah, I think even if you had JD in like a nice font, like a circle or something,
Yeah.
you have your own little mark,
Yeah.
just something that you
Just a
could just,
branding.
yeah, exactly. Just a little something that, that would be memorable. But I think it's that, like, layout-wise, they can do a really good job of transitioning from hero into the next section, right? And then even the next section, get to know me. So he's breaking up that kind of those regions like we were talking about. So you're actually kind of reading them and you're treating them as, let me start into a new section. And I think your social icons look really good. I think that's a nice presentation.
Yeah, you kind of always know where you're at, getting to know you. Now you're showing your portfolio. I think the breakup makes it easy and don't make me think.
Right. Yeah. I
So,
was about to say, like, the whole funnel of which you're trying to push the user down is on the homepage here, because you have who you are, what you do. You have examples of your work, which is the logical next step of the funnel for this specific service you're offering. And then you talk about yourself, you humanize it a little bit. Again, as far as content goes, you don't want to be too heavy on home pages, but as far as what you're talking about and the messaging you're getting through, it's very logical as far as what people are looking for. And especially the very bottom part, which is, the contact information. I think using the word contact instead of hire is probably a better idea because it's less of a commitment. Even though it's the same effort to them, they click a button and then they fill out a form. When they click on hire, expectation-wise, they think they're already at that level. If it's just contact, it's a lot easier for them to commit to just reaching out and learning a little bit more.
Lower obligation.
Obligation, yeah, that's the word.
I've also been told a lot of times that it's just too WordPress theme specific and it's not enough original of me. So I don't know.
But are you being hired as a designer or are you being hired as a developer?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, anything can be enhanced and improved upon. When you
That's
do
why
have, when you do have the portfolio pieces up there, I would imagine you're probably going to be talking more about like what you did for building it. So
Right.
you're going to have little stats or information to go along with it. Kind of going with what these guys said, like you'd want to break this up so it's not too content heavy and maybe be more like bullets or stats or something, especially if we're talking about like your dev skills.
Okay.
So who's the ideal client here for you?
Well, the target audience for me was just, I didn't have one specifically in mind. Anything from freelance work to just trying to showcase any works that I've done to get hired by an agency.
Okay. So the ideal situation for you, would it be to take on a new dev project, a freelance project, or would it be maybe to get hired on from a company or an agency?
Hired on.
Okay, cool. So then I definitely would want to make sure you're talking about yourself right? Like you're thinking, like there's two different perspectives. If I'm hiring you to do work, I want to make sure that your code and the projects that you've done are top notch from end to end. As a developer, I want to know you, right? And so if I'm looking to hire somebody that can fill that need, yeah, I want to know that you do great work, but I'm really interested what's unique about you. So I think like your story that you have under that, I would really give some kind of nerdy, creative, like kind of like what makes you unique, you know, that stands out. But really also like Brett was saying, like the development pieces that you have in your portfolio. Don't just use stock like images. Like you really want to have dev specific pieces that really kind of help make sure that they emphasize that kind of part.
I thought about doing, more about me, but then listening earlier, you guys were focusing on not so much yourself, but the user.
Good point. Yeah, that's why I asked what your intention is, right? But it's a balance, right? I don't mean like go. It's all about Jeffrey. It's all about hire me. But like you got to know like that's what I want to happen out of this, and so you got to make sure that you at least are positioning yourself like even in your statement up there, like you're really talking about do you have a web project? I don't know. I mean, like if our agency was looking at your website, we'd be like, oh, this is a freelancer. He's not looking for a job. He's looking for a project, right? So just little things like that.
In this case, you are the product. You're trying to sell yourself. So it's gonna, like a balance case here, like you want to kind of showcase it. And you don't have to say me, but you can personalize it a little bit more. Like so instead of maybe a photo or just a laptop on a desk, maybe there's a picture of you at your desk, working.
Exactly.
And then it's just like, obviously the goal here is like, I want a company to look at my stuff, find out a little bit more about me, and hopefully reach out to me. So you sell yourself.
Yeah. And selling yourself is probably like one of the hardest things you can do. Because it's so close to home. I think one thing about if you have and I'm sure a lot of people, are using these types of tactics to create a website for themselves and sell, their own services. It's important to try to think about, what you can do for them. More so than the qualities about yourself that you find to be really good. Because like you might be, very smart, you might be very talented, but what do they care about as far as your characteristics that will improve their perspective of you? And you have that right because you first go into your work. That's the first thing they want to know. The next thing they might want to know is, okay, what's it like to work with you? That's where your characteristics would come in. So you can highlight different statistics of, I created a website that had this result. Then if it comes to you specifically, it's like, I have this many years of experience, I've done this many projects. If you are going to talk about yourself, make sure it's framed in a way that the person who's receiving it is getting that either authority or social proof. So like if you have any certifications or degrees or anything like that, it's almost like a resume. Wow, I just described a resume. If it's like any emblems you can put on there, that will like kind of keep pushing that I know what I'm doing type of environment you're trying to create on your homepage. You definitely want to showcase those things. And when it comes to like more like and this is also things that people put on the bottom of their resumes too, is like hobbies. Just for a human connection, I think that is important. You definitely want to showcase that as they dig deeper into the site and have a little angle on it too. So like you mentioned, you like poker and baseball or even photography. You can incorporate those hobbies or something, or in a way that like would be beneficial to your characteristics as a developer and designer. So poker, I'm really into the numbers and figuring, reading playing the player, not playing the card. So understanding the user and what their needs are. So I think you can make it a little fun, and you can still showcase these characteristics about yourself too.
I'll also say one last thing here. I'm reading a lot more than I normally do. Right? Like I never read. And his site, like there's a lot of words. I will never read all of that. That's why bullet points help.
Yeah.
Like just help me summarize it, give me the little cliff notes, and like because we're all moving so fast, site to site, and like we don't have a lot, but you got my attention now. So make sure I see what I need to see when getting to know you.
Okay.
Awesome. Good, great example.
Cool. Anyone else got a site?
My site is still, it's from 2007. The site said my company, so I don't wanna, you're gonna change, so when you change, if you have another detail.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
What's the URL, the address?
But it's 2007.
That's okay.
Yeah, we'll pull it up. It'll work.
Brightstar1.com. Brightstar1.
Is it the word
number
one?
one?
No, the words.
Like-
O-N-E,
Oh, okay.
yeah, .com. It's all.
I don't know.
We know, yeah.
The Brightstar.
Did I do that right?
That's
Oh yeah, it's just learning. I mean, that's exactly what we're here though to do is take that, that first impression you've been giving off and learn how to improve on it, So we can help from a messaging standpoint what you're trying to say in certain regions, and it's pretty much, how you're saying it is what's so important on the homepage.
Yeah, but we need to do something more like now, because this is kind of a lot of words too, a lot of things to see.
I'm immediately seeing elements in which just rearranging things can be very beneficial to your new homepage. The first thing is our satisfied customers. Now, a lot of different businesses will put this on the hero region, is who they've worked with or their specific work. So if that's something, the first thing you need to explain, obviously, is what you do. So, and I definitely feel they get the 2007 feel, and this then this was best practice. Think people's behaviors evolve in the way they consume things. So the first couple first impressions, if anyone else wants to chime in and see, what opportunities do we have here?
I would say with the row with your network into the cloud, with the backgrounds, there's more of a focus on that content than the content of it.
Your eyes naturally go there.
Yeah. So we need to put up like the picture now, the new ones, so we see big pictures, you know what I mean?
Well,
That's
just
what
like,
Adam was talking to me about, there has to be something more.
just like Johnny said, like people's eyes are
Yeah, and that was
attracted
a lot of
to
pictures.
visuals. And
Not a lot of words, because people don't want to read
Sure.
a lot. So,
people are lazy.
yeah,
They don't want to.
they don't want to read,
Yeah.
so it's, yeah. So I know now 2017, 2016, 17, new things.
So I mean, some things that we could do. So some of these we do is like you don't have to say home again. It's already there on the home button. The contact us. Maybe it's more beneficial for a form to be there instead of having the 2 paragraphs of text. We already have you have 2 different call buttons. That's a little contradictory. So which one would be the focus? Is like you want to focus on that one. Do you understand what I'm saying? You got 2 numbers. Which one am I supposed to be calling?
Okay, got it. So it's better like the one number?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah, 2000.
Well, it's old, and you're aware that it's old, and that
That's
it
their A/B
needs some
testing,
love.
right?
Yeah. Obviously, mobile responsiveness is something you can look at. Like I brought the phone up with my phone, and it looks exactly like the desktop. So I'm gonna have to really scroll on there just to see stuff, and that's even if I would
Mobile
like to
friendly,
read it. So,
that's what I know.
So also, and I'm not sure if this is a state whatever page you're on is highlighted, but you see on the navigation home is got the green circle. You would want that green circle probably around contact us, which is like the main action you would want them to take. So in your navigation, if there was like one specific thing, so go ahead and click on another one real quick. Okay,
So it's active state.
Active state, that's the word. Okay, we can go back to home.
And because now I think it's one page you just scroll down or you click, that's the new thing.
Yeah, it depends,
Well, that's
because there are some services that require a lot of information to be given, for a user to really get the full picture of what you do and, the results they could see if they used it. For this, I think that part you have, we make sure your network keeps up with your business. Your. That's what you want to have in that very first thing that people see. And you can also create with imagery or with one little subheading exactly what it is you do. Because you have the right idea and you're talking about the user, you're not talking about yourself. You're telling them what you can do for them. So that's good. That's what you would want to have in that first impression, is you're about them. And then like Brett mentioned with the contact us, you probably only need the actual contact buttons with the contact us, you don't need a lot of, as far as like information in between the two. We want users to have as little friction as possible. So if you do have a call for on your homepage for people to contact you, make it a form so it's very simple. They just put that information in, or just make it very straightforward contact, and then you have your buttons for the options that you can contact the business for.
Have we talked about, and I was just in the restroom, but that there's no people on the website. It's all icons and logos, and if you're saying that you make sure networks keep up with your business, it sounds like it's really important that the business is gaining that value, and I think showing people personalizes the brand, and to make sure that you understand that you're there to serve them. I think logos are great. Obviously, that shows credibility, and I'm sure you guys have talked about that. But I think the very Web 2.0, which used to be a lot of like icons and like those kind of looks. But like you said, you already know it's a little bit outdated. But those would be some things that I would point out.
Question for you, Tim. Like, if she's got a news feed, which isn't pulling anything at the moment, would it be better that it's their own content versus pulling an RSS feed?
Oh yeah, for sure. So the RSS feeds they can be tricky. Usually you want to host any information in which you're talking about your business or about your user's industry. You would want to host that information on your site within one of the pages. And then you can feature those different articles or pieces of information close to the bottom. From an organizational standpoint of how you have the page set up, it is following a lot of good practices. You have the logos, and you have the what you do or you offer in the second region there in a very visual way with bullet points like Johnny mentioned, as opposed to paragraphs. So you do have the organization correct. It's just, as far as at this point now, it's all about putting everything in the right place, making it very consumable from a user perspective. So they can see, and usually with regions, you want to have one goal at a time for the user. So for example, in this one, your goal for the hero region should just to be explain what you are, what you do, and create that connection. And you also have the contact us within the same region. So you're kind of, our attention is a finite resource, which means if you're paying attention to one thing on the same page, it takes away from all the attention you would be paying on the other part of the page. So each region, that's why the big imagery works so well, is because it has such an emotional impact on the person who's looking at it, because it's the only thing they can see. There's nothing else taking away from that message you're trying to send. So breaking it up so that we make sure your network is keeping up, that has its own region with its own image, and then you have these three what you do in the next region. So, we claim to be multitaskers in the sense of we can do several things or consume several things at once, but in reality, we're very much one at a time type of behavioral creatures. So if we present things to people one at a time from a goal perspective, it'll be easier for them to make that decision and click the contact button or click the learn more button, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm getting it.
You probably don't need there's no cost or obligation to talk, because that would, most people would assume like some type of contact or initial consultation would be free because it's a matter of connecting information with your business. So somebody may read that and say, well, duh, why would I pay to, ask my questions if I was interested in your product or your service? So again, nothing major, but again, if kind of looking for ways to just remove a little bit of that content to decongest, that could be something.
Another great routine when you're creating your homepage or any page for that matter is to put everything that you intend to put up there. That's okay for starting because you're not done yet. Then look at it and say, what can we remove from a words perspective that doesn't take away from the high level message we're trying to send. So it's kind of like you put out, say you're trying to organize a garage sale. You put out all the things you might want to sell. And then, no, actually, I really want to keep that. And so you start taking away. That'd probably be a good idea for websites that have a lot of information that you want to give right away on the homepage. And a perfect example is exactly what Kat just pointed out. There are certain things that are assumed in which we don't need to explain to the user anymore. And we used to, because that's, back then, that's when people did need those answers. But it's gotten to a point where there are things where, the user already understands these things, and explaining it to them only causes friction in their experience. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I have a website.
Yeah.
All right, it's my name and my company's name. It's B Thorndike. That's THORNDIKE .advanta, which is ADVANTA realty.com.
Did I spell that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, everyone. First impression, right away. You got half a second, right? Half a second. What's it on?
Loading time is slow.
And that is another thing about the homepage. On other pages, if you want to have like videos and different content or animations that that might be a little more relevant, it's more beneficial to have them interior pages. If you have it on your homepage, you can come across like for example here. This is a slow. The internet is slow for this machine, so that could be part of it as well. But you want your very first experience to be very quick, just like we mentioned in the beginning. It's half a second. That's what you have from from a user perspective. But yeah, so you have to make sure on the homepage you don't want to have too many different elements or animations, or from a development standpoint, too many complications that might slow down the load time. All right.
I like that though.
Yeah.
Looks good on this big TV.
The
Yeah.
house is really big.
I could fit in there right now.
It's very clear, selling your luxury home, value prop. I think the logo looks strong. Yeah, I think from the hero image, it's definitely well put together.
Oh yeah.
Easy, no confusion, not too many navigations.
Wait, actually, go back up. So at this point, I'd be curious who's Brian. Contact Brian today. But I'm looking at Advanta Realty. Wait, luxury home realty by Brian. Okay, that threw me off for a second.
So in this industry, because I think there's a benefit and a risk with having your name. Because if you have your name right away, right like that, you're humanizing it, and people are like, okay, it's a little more trustworthy. But on the flip side, since you have a brand name, Advanta Realty, that gives you a little more authenticity, like a little more like magnitude. If you sound like this big company, you're not like misrepresenting yourself as much as like you're continuing that impression of professionalism. You know what I mean, like company wise. So in this area, if it is more, and I've never been in this industry, so if it is more beneficial to be more personal, and you're gonna call your name out, I would definitely have a picture of you as well in this hero image, like you standing next to the house, or you handing the keys to someone who just bought a luxury home or sold a luxury home, take the keys away. That would probably be like, you want the message to really match the picture, so you can take either one away and you can still understand what you do. That would be the very first suggestion there is the consistency among the image and the copy that you have here.
Can I scroll down?
Yes, sir.
So I was looking at this on the phone. It seemed everything was singular up until we got to the who are we, and in the text below it still just talks about Brian. So mom was like, who is Brian?
But
Sure.
even there, it says, my name's Brian Thorndike, and thank you for choosing us at Advanta Realty. So I think, again, that comes back to you're introducing yourself, we need to see you.
I would also say from an organizational standpoint, and this is similar to what we were saying about Jeffrey's site, is when a user gets to your site, they're a lot more interested in what you can provide them before you're telling them about you. You know what I mean? So I would say from a structured standpoint, I would have the properties as the very next thing they see. And then after that, then you can start talking about yourself a little bit more. Because that's what they're really interested in, is what you have to offer as far as properties go.
I don't know about that.
Looks to be in the price range.
Yeah.
Choosing, you may wanna say thank you for considering, since they haven't made a choice yet, you don't wanna assume. Just like you appreciate the fact that they're even, reaching out or learning about you. Maybe a little gentler.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you can click on any of those.
Okay.
Or maybe you can.
We went to the photo. So I think you're definitely, it's definitely aesthetically pleasing. Everything has room to breathe. Every section is distinct and has its own purpose. This area here could use a little, maybe like fine tuning, like not too much text to read again, as we've said with some of the previous sites, a bit more bullet point or using more defining like header styling to kind of like separate the content of it. I agree with Tim that properties would probably be what I would want to see next.
Just go back up real quick. Like, I feel like if you were cut out like big right there, like standing like in a really sharp photo, and then it's like, I don't know, you're kind of framing yourself into the scene. Like even like if this was kind of like you had this scene that was like blurred out or like faded out, but you were at the forefront. Like, and I think that's where I think that introducing himself before the properties could work. I don't know. I like to think about. I like to keep doing that.
I mean, I would say, like, depending upon the industry. So it could be very possible where it's like the thing that separates you, or the thing that your clientele are really interested in, is, can I trust you? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
you see
exactly.
lawyers putting their face everywhere and everywhere, like all over the place on their website, very first thing you see. So if the industry is similar in this situation where, establishing you as a person, an individual who really cares, then it might be more appropriate to have a little more talking about yourself. It really depends on what's more important to them. So is it first, can I trust you? Then, okay, what properties do you have? Or is it, what properties do you have? Okay, can I trust you? So it depends upon, their thought process too.
But I feel like there's so many property websites out there. Like, you can always use like whatever Zillow and Trulia and all these sites, but like why you're going here is because of Brian, right? Like what Brian's representing. So I think that that's where I would really want him to kind of stand out. And then he's representing all of these really high-end properties. So
Yeah, definitely need to get pictures of you on there for sure.
yeah, exactly.
I want to see that face, smiling.
And signing
Yeah,
contracts,
exactly. Smiling,
yeah.
friendly, trustworthy, reliable.
Are these supposed to be properties you've already sold?
So these are just stock photos, I guess.
Okay, alright.
This is all the designer added those himself.
You could definitely benefit from some social,
Oh yeah.
like some previous clients,
Sold in 7 days, like stuff like that. So this is the site you said that you've been waiting for to finish?
No, this is the better one. The other one is too horrible to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I like the red chairs, that kind of contrast. It's very subtle, but it just gives it a little bit of punch.
There you go.
Mhm.
This is so much for the blue.
Yeah, right.
Feel bad for the guy living next door. So.
I know. Beat Jack.
Good.
So he's happy. He's happy. He got his value increased.
Yeah.
That's true.
Sure.
Very good point.
Great example, Ryan, great example. Anybody else have anything they want to share, or? Did you guys think this was helpful?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for coming. I believe we have the survey sheets out. If you want to leave us a little, what you thought, and then what you might want to learn about in the future, that'd be great. I'm sure there's a ton of cookies. Definitely grab some food. And again, thanks for coming, and see you next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.